liberty, and justice for all. We could bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for another day. We ask that you guide us tonight as we make decisions that are in the best interest of our students, our staff, our taxpayers. We also ask you to lay your guiding hands on those in our community that are in need, those that have lost loved ones, those that are suffering both physically and mentally through this pandemic and other issues that may arise. We ask that you watch over us tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. Roll call. Mr. Basham?
Here.
Miss Franklin?
Here.
Miss Overberg? Mr. Groen?
Here.
And I am present. We have quorum. Mr. Brohart?
Yes, thank you, sir. There are a few emergency additions to the agenda that I want to bring to the board's attention. Those items are highlighted in red. If you turn to C, personnel, under C.1, certified appointments, we have C 1.1, C 1.2, C 1.3. And then under classified appointments, under C.3, we have C.3.6, C 3.7, and C 3.8. And then we do have some clarifying language under technology, under D1. And then we have an addition of some clarity for D2. And then under other, we are going to table E.1. Again, we'll table E.1. And then we did add E.8. Those are the emergency additions to the agenda. I would ask the board for a motion and approval of the emergency additions.
You've heard the emergency additions to the agenda recommended by Dr. Brillhart. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you. There are no minutes for approval, no executive minutes for approval. So with that being said, with your permission, I'd like to move on to school report.
Go ahead.
All right, under recognitions, Felicia Wesley, Silver Creek Primary Reading Interventionist and PE teacher, completed a grant application with the Greater North Clark Foundation to support recess equipment for our classrooms. As a result, Silver Creek Primary is the recipient of $4,972.79 to purchase new recess equipment with recess bags for every classroom. A huge thank you to Felicia for taking the time to complete the grant application. We appreciate all that you do for our students. At Silver Creek Middle School, we'd like to recognize and congratulate Rhonda Granger as Staff Member of the Month for December. Ms. Granger was nominated by many students for all the extra care and support she provides on a daily basis. Moving on to Silver Creek High School. The Silver Creek High School Pep Band is back. We have been recording videos to play on the new projection screen at the basketball games. The band room recently received new carpet and paint. We'd like to thank those that donated materials and volunteered to help paint. Donating paint included the Mattingly family, the Vorde family, and the Johnson family. Paint volunteers included Jenny Jockum, Jeremy Jockum, Valerie Thompson, Scott Gordon, Jennifer Gordon, Tabitha Bowling, Sarah Shelton, Rachel Shelton, and Alex Smith. Also at Silver Creek High School, Trey Kaufman-Wren became the Silver Creek boys all-time leading scorer Saturday, January 17th. He surpassed the previous record holder of 1971 Silver Creek High School graduate and Indiana All-Star Steve Green, who finished his career with 1,404 points. Mr. Green went on to Indiana University as Bob Knight's first recruit and was an All-American, All-Big Ten basketball player. He also played in the ABA, NBA, before graduating from IU Dental School and becoming a dentist. So again, congratulations to Trey. Also at Silver Creek High School, we'd like to say congratulations to Coach Patrick Anderson for being named the Indiana High School Girls Small Soccer School Coach of the Year. Again, congratulations to Coach Anderson. Alex Nerdoff progressed into the semifinalists in the Indiana Young Playwright Competition with his play, When the Pain Dries. We had 9 students participate in the competition. Dr. Badger is also the team sponsor. So again, congratulations to Alex. And at Silver Creek Elementary, we'd like to thank Chris Rosio for his work on the grounds at Silver Creek Elementary. We are very excited to see when that is complete. Maria Jenkins and our Title I team of assistants, Jennifer Potts, Shelby Billings, Michelle Irma Tinger Salas, have worked diligently to implement a new reading, writing, spelling intervention program for our most at-risk population of students. Our teachers and staff work together at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and at the end of the year to assess our students using M-Class Dibbles, a universal screener. Based on that data we collect from these screeners, our new program places students into targeted interventions to remediate specific skill deficits. We are piloting this program for free this year, thanks to the company. We will analyze our data at the end of the school year to determine the effectiveness of the program to help make decisions for the following school year. We have had many discussions recently about the intervention programs, curriculums in our building. Oftentimes, the students we intervene with using these programs progress, but the gaps do not close like we'd like to see. Our hope is through this new program and addressing these specific deficits identified using the universal screener data, this will of course change. Also, we want to recognize Anna Dablo, that won the Silver Creek Holiday Tournament Queen competition. Congratulations to Anna. And a couple of announcements. Senior Award Program at Silver Creek High School is slated for May 21st at 7 p.m. And the Silver Creek graduation, never too early to be talking about this, is slated for June 6th at again, of course, the Silver Creek High School main gym. And sadly, we do want to share our condolences with Mrs. Good. We want to share our condolences with for the family, Miss Connie Mull. Of course, Connie is a longtime educator at the Henryville campus, and she was sadly lost last week. So again, our condolences go to the Borden Henryville School Corporation, the Henryville campus, and again, the Mull family. That being said, moving on to reminders and upcoming events, we have our regular scheduled board meeting on February 15th at 6:30. This will be at the Silver Creek Middle School GPR. Again, Silver Creek Middle School GPR at 6:30. Again, we're going to kind of do a rotation here in the next handful of months so we can highlight some of the new additions and renovations we've done to our building. So again, that'll be 6:30, Silver Creek Middle School GPR. We don't have any updates from Mrs. Hawkins. No finance updates from myself. So again, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Within the consent agenda, we have just a few things under finance, including some donations. We do have one approval for a grant, PLTW grant, training grant for the computer science for Andy Luther at Silver Creek Middle School. We have another donation of the Silver Creek High School Food Pantry of $10,179 for the COVID-19 relief grant from the Community Foundation of Southern Indiana. At this time, I'd like to kind of take a pause within the consent agenda and turn it over to Mrs. Franklin. She has a little item that she would like to recognize, the donation from the Community Foundation of Southern Indiana. Ms. Franklin?
If we could have Mr. Al Eckert come up here, Dee Kramer and Mrs. Amanda Albrand come on up. Tonight we have a spotlight that we want to put on the Community Foundation of Southern Indiana, and then also these three hardworking people at our high school. It's worth spotlighting the work of Mrs. Kramer and Mrs. Amanda Albrand, as they have continuously advocated for our students and community. They not only have Walter up here with them tonight, which was brought into place by a lot of work of many people, but really Mrs. Kramer helped with that. Since March, the Community Foundation has funded over $15,000 into our school, all of which were applied for by Mrs. Kramer. In March, they funded $3,000 to our Speed Memorial Church in the community, which Mrs. Kramer overcame the challenges of our school being shut down to still serve the population in our community through that church. And the Community Foundation funded that grant to continue to be able to provide food to our families. In July, the virtual library was funded from the Community Foundation. That was $2,070. And then again tonight we are accepting another donation, which was applied for by Mrs. Kramer, and we are receiving $10,000 to sustain our food pantry. So if we allowed Dee to talk, she would give the credit to everybody else, but she simply has worked extremely hard along with Mr. Eckert and Mrs. Albrand and a lot of volunteers at the high school. So it's worth spotlighting their work tonight, And we are extremely grateful for the resource in the community of the Community Foundation, which continues to look at our grants that we're applying for. Not only do they serve our population, but they also serve the population of Southern Indiana. And so that's something that we're extremely grateful for and continue to build a networking relationship with. So thank you to all parties who are up here tonight, and we'll let Mrs. Gunther talk a little bit about what she's got on that check there tonight. Sure, you can stand up here at the mic if you'd like. Yeah. There you go.
Testing. Okay, great. So good evening. On behalf of the Community Foundation of Southern Indiana Board of Directors, we're pleased to present this check for $10,000 to Silver Creek High School, Silver Creek School Corporation. I also want to say it's my pleasure to be here tonight at my first Silver Creek School Corporation school board meeting. It's a pleasure to be here. And on behalf of the foundation, we're presenting this check this evening. Our COVID relief fund was activated in March of last year. Last time we had that activated was in March of 2012 during the tornadoes that occurred in our community. We reactivated that in March of last year to address all of the COVID, the fallout from all the COVID, the pandemic. So congratulations, Dee. And again, it's our pleasure to present this check to you all this evening.
Well, they're taking some pictures. It's just important to note that our food pantry currently serves 200 individuals weekly, and that has grown from something that really started as a few students who are identified in need to basically a food pantry that serves a wide range and broad population of the Silver Creek and Sellersburg community. So, Dee, we can't thank you enough for what you're doing and your continued advocacy for our students and staff. You really do, along with Mrs. Albrand and Mr. Eckert and all your volunteers up there, embody what the heart and soul of Silver Creek is, and we're really happy and thankful for you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you all. I would be remiss if I didn't get this late addition in for recognition, but again, thank you all. Thank you to the Community Foundation and Dee and Amanda and Mr. Eckert for all your hard work and compassion for Silver Creek High School and the families in our community. Tonight, we'd also like to recognize Mrs. Andrea Anderson and Mr. Josh Sinclair. Josh, our food service director, recently started highlighting the new menu items being offered in our cafeteria in red font, as Mrs. Anderson, a teacher at Silver Creek Elementary, decided to reward her kids that tried the new menu items with their fire card. It was a surprise after they chose so as not to influence their decision. The next day, when the students heard the new menu items, 12 students who chose cafeteria lunch chose the new menu item. We love the new kids are adventurous eaters because it helps them eat healthier with having more food choices than what they like. So again, great job to Mrs. Anderson and Mr. Sinclair. We'd also like to spotlight our school counselors. This week is celebrated all around the U.S. as National School Counselor Week. Professional school counselors collaborate with administrators, teachers, staff, families, and community to ensure all students have the opportunity to design a rigorous and relevant academic and career program. Professional school counselors design and implement comprehensive school programs that include educational and career planning activities for all students that are designed to assist students in reaching academic, career, and personal social goals. Please help me celebrate the Silver Creek school counselors who implement our school counseling program and play a vital role in the educational process for all students as they meet the challenges of the 21st century learners. So again, thank you, and again, congratulations to our school counselors. And again, happy National School Counselor Week. Moving on with the consent agenda. Again, we do have some items added as late items under certified appointments. Again, under C 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. We do have one certified resignation under C 2.1. We do again have a handful of classified appointments under C 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, and 3.8. We have no classified resignations. We have one classified termination under C 5.1. Nothing under ECA, nothing under leaves in retirement. Under technology, we have D1, cybersecurity audit contract, and D2, just some items for clarity under the federal guidelines. And then under other, again, we are going to strike E.1. We have E.2, ECA rate charge increase from $23.90 an hour to $24 an hour. E3, approval for Silver Creek High School to use Event Link. E4, approval of revised Silver Creek School Corporation pay scale, clarity language for the ELL assistant, and then also the creation of a permanent classroom sub-positions. E5, out-of-district transfer form updated for the 21-22 school year. E.6, second reading of changes to policy 0167.3, public participation in board meetings. E7, Silver Creek High School switched to e-learning February 15th and 16th to safely administer the I-STEP for needed social distancing. Again, that would be just for Silver Creek High School. E.8, approval of latchkey program between Silver Creek School Corporation and Stay in Play for the 2023 year. This is basically just a continued previous 3-year agreement between West Clark and Stay in Play. Again, we're just scratching West Clark from the top and putting Silver Creek just as a formality. Are there any questions of any items on the consent agenda?
I had a question about the approval of the revised SCSC pay scale for the ELL assistants with the clarity language. Looks like on the agenda there's some words missing. But the clarity language was that not only that they would be bilingual, am I correct, and also be offering bilingual services?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, let me find it in my file here.
So do we currently have now one ELL assistant at each building that is offering bilingual services?
Bottom, do you know?
Abby, do we have one at the elementary? Okay. Okay, we have a bilingual at the primary. He's not offering bilingual services, but he is bilingual. We have one at the elementary, two at the elementary. We have at least one at the middle school, don't we? Neither one of them. Okay, but they're so the teachers help there. Okay. And then, Mr. Eckert, is there one at the high school? Okay, so there's none at the high school and none at the middle school.
So the one at the primary who's bilingual but not offering bilingual services, what does bilingual services mean to you? And I'm curious why that their skill is not being used.
So they speak a different language. They're bilingual in a language where we don't necessarily have students that speak that.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then what about the two at the elementary school? Are we utilizing their bilingual services?
I mean, they're helping students. Do you mean bilingual services by like translating things?
Yes.
And serving
And
in
like,
that
you know, if the
capacity?
parent comes in and they need to translate, is that your understanding of bilingual services?
So there would be times where that would definitely occur, but that is not their primary function.
So I guess what my question is, are those two on this scale that we're talking about, the revised scale? Because they would then fall under that scale, correct?
I could not answer that at this point. I mean, we can definitely get that information to you by tomorrow. We just don't have that information sitting in front of us at this point, so I don't want to give you bad info by no means.
Okay.
I just have one question related to that as well. So this would go into effect when considering for new hires, I would assume, correct? So if you posted a job and they were applying possibly for this position, what standard or verification do we have that somebody actually speaks or is bilingual, to be able to put them on this pay scale? Possibly to implement that, obviously, anybody could come in and say they're bilingual, but, and then also, so what are we going to do to verify that, I guess, so that they can offer those specific services? If somebody's not bilingual and they come in and can speak some Spanish, that may appear bilingual, but I think to get them to the level where we're paying them at a different pay scale, I think we need some sort of way to verify exactly what they're capable of doing and what services they can offer by some sort of verification.
I can speak on that. In the past, when we've had a need for that type of position, very simply within the interview process, we'll literally take 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and just have them do kind of a trial run on maybe some translation services, whether it be verbally or written, just to verify obviously their skill level. I can tell you from my standpoint, I wouldn't have a clue. So
Right. That's
why
what I'm concerned about is.
We will bring someone else in, obviously, in that interview process to ensure that. So absolutely.
And just checking of references and the credentials would be the other thing that I would say with that, yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you. Any other questions on anything related on the consent agenda? Bless you.
Thank you.
I did want to say to Jerry that I appreciated the extra information that he put in with regards to his recommendation, so it would be clear to us, why you are recommending this one. It was helpful.
Anything else on the consent agenda?
My recommendation to the board would be to approve the consent agenda as it sits.
For the recommendation of the superintendent, do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion, Mr. Groan. Ms. Franklin seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you. Moving on, we have one item under discussion action that is the approval of the Covert Hawkins A1A contract. Basically, what is being proposed to the board and recommended to the board is to approve Covert Hawkins, which is our current architect that we're utilizing for projects 3, 4, and 5, to initiate them to help with the visioning and kind of a preliminary planning process between now and just whenever that date possibly is, when we decide we know exactly what we are going to do within these next phases of potential building projects. So within the contract that was presented to the board earlier, again, it's very streamlined, very straight-laced. Our legal counsel has reviewed it, pretty nuts and bolts and basic. So again, my recommendation, if there's not any further discussion that needs to be had about this, would be to recommend to approve this contract with Covert Hawkins for the next phase.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if maybe the lawyer could answer this. I don't know if you've actually seen this documented, but it's regards to Article 3, use of documents. If we use this architect to draw up plans, and then if we don't actually use that architect in the future, I'm wondering if these plans, if we can use them, or if we will run into a copyright issue. Article 3.
Yeah, Troy Miller, Bose, McKinney, and Evans. Is that on? Article 3, you had mentioned plans and specifications. The process that we're going through is really to develop programming and space kind of programming, which will lead into the next phase versus plans and specifications. So this is kind of a preliminary assessment or inventory of what is needed and what is currently had as far as facilities.
So they're not actually drawing up any plans? I thought we needed plans drawn up in order to then vote.
That would be the next step. This is just an initial kind of inventorying of spaces within the school system, and then kind of assembling a wish list, if you will, of we would like to do these improvements at these facilities, these additions, renovations. And then when the process contemplates a separate and new agreement with much more detail that would go into that construction manager as constructor process, where the plans and specs are developed in that case. And then in those documents, we would ensure that at a bare minimum, the school would have a license to use those for its future use, along with maintaining facilities or making additions on down the road, things like that. So this agreement is, as the superintendent said, is very basic and bare bones. It has a $25,000 not to exceed, and it's just meant to do what architects and design professionals call programming. So there'll be an assessment of facilities and then kind of meetings with certain groups to determine what is needed to get us going on that process of moving into the actual projects and design.
Okay,
Does that help?
yes.
Any other questions?
But, so just, sorry, I do
No,
have
you're
another
fine.
question. It still talks about copyright though, so this, in a sense, it kind of sounds like a needs assessment type of situation. We would still be able to garner and use that information going forward, whether we stick with this architect company or not. Is that correct? My only concern would be to put, this much money into something and then
Sure.
if we don't choose them, not being able to use that information.
Sure.
Because it does go into some verbiage here about copyright.
I have a question while we're waiting for him to confirm that. I guess my question is if you brought in other architect firms who are willing to give you a needs assessment for free, could we not consider those as well? Or do we have to specifically go with one just with regards to the needs and specs of what they're recommending or what we're asking them to do?
If I may, my answer to that would be, my suggestion would be to go with Covert Hawkins. I don't know if you're necessarily going to get the service for free. You're going to pay for it one way or the next, whether it be now or 6 months from now or whatnot, because obviously they have manpower, they have costs associated. So the advantage I see with Covert Hawkins is you're already going to naturally get to second base, for instance, a lot quicker than if you bring someone fresh in. And considering the timeline that we're probably going to be looking at and considering, I think that's extremely important if we're wanting to get this accomplished when we're trying to get this accomplished. Okay. And the good thing is the $25,000 fee, if Covert Hawkins is chosen as the architect for the planning purposes, that fee is included, or it's expedited
Kind of
within
put
that cost.
into-
Yes,
It's
yes.
a credit.
A credit.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a credit,
Future
yes.
fees.
So,
Thank you for that
You're very
clarification.
And to completely answer your question, as long as the documents that are generated under this agreement are used for the projects, which is defined as I believe, 4 different facility buildings, the owner has the right to use those documents. So even though there
Okay.
is a copyright right, it's basically
We're part owner in that copyright, so to speak.
Yes, it's
Okay.
a work for hire where you own those rights to use for the project. Now, you couldn't go out, and this is where we get into trouble, but it won't apply here, is use it on other projects. You build one elementary school, hey, geez, we'll go use those drawings and build a second elementary school. Obviously, that becomes a little bit of a sticky issue, but on this particular contract for the work that's being done, you would have the right to use those for the continued project.
And I don't know if this is out of your scope to ask you this, but is 25,000 typical for a needs assessment? I just thought that seemed awful high for a needs assessment.
I couldn't comment on that because I'm not yet familiar with the amount of work that needs to be done at the different facilities and things like that. In my opinion, though, it does not seem too far out of line.
Rachel,
Okay.
I think it's less than what we paid back. Of course, we were looking at 3 different campuses on the referendum, but that's quite a bit less than what we paid out before.
But wasn't that with
It was
drawings also, though? Because this is
Not
without
the-
drawings.
not the first phase.
Okay.
And also, I think we need to realize this is a not to exceed $25,000. It is a flat hourly rate based on the work that they perform with a not to exceed clause in there.
Yeah,
They have all their hours written out too, so you know exactly what architect, how much they get paid for.
okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve Colbert Hoffman's A1A contract?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Mr. Basham makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groen seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay, thank you. That wraps up the consent agenda and also discussion action items. So, Mr. President, I'll turn it back over to you for adjournment.
Anybody from the board have anything that they want to add at the end?
No, except that maybe we should clarify the new process for people being able to speak since we finalized our policy.
Sure. So we just, Mr. Brillhart, tonight was the final reading of that, right? It
It-
takes effect next board meeting?
Technically, it was not the final reading. We can go back and make it the final reading if you so desire. We can literally just add it as a second discussion action item if you want, and we
Let's
can
do
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
So we will do that. So number 2 under discussion action items will be basically technically skipping the second reading of the public participation at board meeting policy. And this would be a third and final reading of, again, policy 0167.3. So again, just to kind of wrap it up in a nutshell, instead of requiring 48 hours notice at a meeting or a regular meeting or a special board meeting such as tonight, someone could attend and they will obviously just sign in to address the board at the end of the meeting. So like, for instance, right now is at the point when we would ask for community input. The speaker of choice needs to be a Silver Creek School Corporation stakeholder. The amount of time that the board is going to allot in total for community input is 15 minutes, and each speaker will be allotted a total time limit of 3 minutes per duration. So again, those are the only changes to policy 0167.3. So
And stakeholder is defined as someone that has a student at a Silver Creek School Corporation school or a taxpayer?
you can define your stakeholder as you see fit, sir.
Well, I thought
So
that's what we
that
had talked
that
about.
is true. It's not in writing, but
Okay.
but again, you can make that determination. So with that being said, I would recommend again to skip the second reading technically and move on to a third and final reading and approval of the adjustments to policy 0167.3.
All right, do we have a motion for discussion item number 2, which is the final reading of the policy? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Franklin makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Basham seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Any community input? I see none signed up, so again, Mr. President, I will turn it over to you for adjournment.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight or listening. And thank you again to Ms. Albrand, Ms. Kramer for being here.
Yeah.
What you guys do is wonderful for this corporation, and the dedication that you put in is impeccable and second to none.
We truly appreciate it.
Very thankful.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll so move.
Mr. Basham makes that motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Ms. Overberg seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.